Hey everybody, Viking Sean here, and I've got a knife I think you're all really going to enjoy. It's a custom knife from Jeremy Robertson, aka Calavera Cutlery, and this is the El Patron. I looked it up, and El Patron means boss, and I think once we take a look at this knife, you're going to see why they named it, why Jeremy Robertson named it the Boss. It is one heck of a folding knife, very strong, and yeah, I'd say it's the Boss. Another knife that you might recall the umnums on also means the Boss. And yeah, a lot of similarities between these two for sure, not just the name, but going to kind of give you a little overview of the El Patron and tell you what I think about it. Kind of give you a little bit of a comparison to some other knives, and we'll just kind of take a look at it. So this is the larger size El Patron. Jeremy makes two different sizes, one with a 3.25 inch blade, and this is the one with the 3.75 inch blade. This one is in 3V, which is a tool steel. He also does D2, and I believe he will also do some stainless steels. But this is the 3V version. He does mark the blade steel right here. You can kind of see the 3V, which is pretty cool. I do like when makers mark the blade steel on the blade. Takes the mystery out of it. And yeah, it's got a nice acid stonewash on the blade there that you can see, and there's Jeremy's maker's mark, made in the USA. Really nice finish, this acid stonewash, very dark. And check out the lockup on this titanium frame lock. That is some early lockup, but this thing is solid, and I mean solid. I mean, you can't tell by me just kind of doing this, but if you could hold this knife, you would be able to tell just how solid this is. There's absolutely no movement in any direction whatsoever, and no lock stick at all, none whatsoever. And those are two things that I definitely really look for in a frame lock. There's no lock bar stabilizer on the El Patron, but there's no way that you need that on this knife. You can see that the cutout in the lock bar is fairly small. Take that and compare it to, say, the Sebenza. Look at how large the cutout is on the Sebenza compared to the El Patron. So what that gives you is a lock bar that has a lot of tension, and you just cannot extend it any further than that, just enough to release the blade. But again, no stick, and it is easy to disengage. Has a great action. I haven't taken this knife apart to see what kind of washers it uses. It's either Teflon, I would imagine, or maybe some phosphorus bronze washers, but it's really smooth, and it just has a really great action. Nice detent, perfectly centered, everything that you would expect from a handmade custom knife. I mean, they're going to take the time to make sure that every detail is all set. But yeah, just a really cool knife. Full titanium, as you can see, thick titanium construction here, and a nice stout piece of 3V blade stock. Alright guys, so I picked up a new instrument over this week to help me to compare knives a little bit better. I got myself this digital calipers, and I got this at Harbor Freight. If you guys are familiar with that store, they have a lot of inexpensive, mostly if not all Chinese made tools. You know, they may not last forever, but for something like this that I really only need for a very limited use, this thing works just fine, and it's pretty cool, and it only cost me about 12 bucks, so that was a pretty nice score there. So I used that to compare the blade stock on the 5 knives that you see in front of you. XM24, this is the Patron, XM18 3.5 inch, SNG, and the Sebenza. So what we've got here, these are basically, the XM24 has the thickest blade stock, and that measured 0.19 inches compared to the next three, which are the Patron, the XM18, and the SNG, which had a blade stock of 0.16 inches for each of these. So these three are exactly the same. You can kind of see a little bit the difference here, but the Hinderer has this little bit of beveling here, which kind of makes it a little deceptive what you're looking at from the top. You can't really see the full thickness very easily. But compared to a Strider SNG, the Patron is going to be very comparable. The blade length at 3.75 inches is just between a 3.5 inch XM18 and a 4 inch XM24, so it's a really nice size. That's just pretty much right in the ballpark of the blade length that I like to carry the most. Another comparison that I did using the calipers was to compare the thickness of the titanium lock side or the titanium scales, and basically they ranked, as you see here, from the XM24, which had a titanium thickness of 0.18 inches, 0.18, the XM18 was 0.17, the Patron was 0.16, the Sebenza was 0.15, and the titanium lockside on the Strider was 0.14. So just kind of interesting how these kind of stacked up. One comparison that I think would be pretty obvious here is a large Sebenza and the Patron. They're both full titanium construction frame locks, very similar look, and so the Patron has just a little bit more thickness in the construction and the handle slabs. As a result of the materials used and the thickness of the materials used, basically this is how it results in terms of weight. And I weighed these on my digital scale just to confirm the weights, and as you can see here, the heaviest being the Hinderer XM24, and that came in at 7.5 ounces for the XM24. The Patron came in at 6 1/8 ounce, so just over 6 ounces, which is a very substantial feel. It definitely has some weight to it. So compared to the large Sebenza, which was 4 3/4 ounces, so that's about 1 1/4 ounces heavier for the Patron, and you know, about the same blade length and about the same overall length. It's just the thickness of the materials is so much more that's kind of what makes up the difference in the weight. Let's take a closer look at the Patron and talk about some of the things that I noticed when evaluating this knife. Definitely very good craftsmanship. This thing is put together using 2 standoffs, a stop pin, and a very generous pivot. All the hardware is very nice. It's polished. It looks very good, and just high quality. Single thumb stud, very similar to the Sebenza, and the blade shape is just a basic drop point with a very nice belly and it's a flat grind that comes to basically almost a zero edge. This sharpened edge, I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but there's almost no transition to the sharpened edge here. You can't really feel it with your fingernail. It just kind of is blended in, so the grind is basically nearly a zero edge there, which is very nice. Makes for a really excellent cutter. I cut some cardboard with this, and it just was ripping through it with no problem whatsoever. And after I was done, just gave it a light strop, and I was back to cutting phone book paper with no problem whatsoever. The blade to handle ratio is very good, if not maybe a little scary, because the tip almost protrudes out of the handle just to the point where I can easily feel it with my finger without really putting much pressure at all. Right there, I can feel it. Now for me, tip up carry, I'm going to be reaching in. I'm not really going to be touching that part necessarily, but it could be a little bit of a safety problem. Now the good thing is, once you sharpen it a few times, or maybe a lot, eventually that's going to wear down anyway, so you're actually going to have more life in your blade, and that's going to be less and less of a problem. So, and I really don't see it as a huge concern. So the action on this knife, it's very smooth, very, very smooth, and solid. I mean, it doesn't feel loose at all anywhere in the opening or closing, and you can give it a little flick there and it opens really nicely. I like how he carves the name into the lock bar, just a nice little detail. And the pocket clip is titanium, and it carries very well. It's not too deep carry, but it's deep enough. It's just right, I would say. The finish on the handles here, one thing that I find is that they're nicely rounded, and it's definitely really comfortable. It's almost a little too rounded compared to, say, the Sebenza, which has nicely chamfered edges. I mean, this is like a machined sort of edge. It's very, very straight and crisp lines, very clean. On the El Patron here, more handmade, which is nice, but not as clean, I think. The edges aren't as defined. Not a knock on it necessarily. I like this design. I think it's a beautiful design, and it feels great in the hand. But just a little bit of a difference, like this finger choil. It's just kind of carved out, very organic, compared to the Sebenza, which is very precisely machined, arc and chamfering. So it's just one little difference there. And I think these two knives are definitely going to be ones you're going to compare, because if you're thinking about getting the El Patron, maybe you already have a Sebenza, you might think, well, what's the point? These are very similar knives. Yeah, I would say if you want something that's a little bit more hard use and rugged, you probably do want the El Patron. You're really going to like it. So what's the value proposition on this knife? Well, the El Patron is going to set you back about $475 directly from the maker, and the large Sebenza is going to run about $410. But for that difference in price, you're getting a thicker slab of 3V steel, slightly thicker titanium scales, and a fully custom knife that's hand built one at a time, or a couple at a time, by one individual maker, and everything is custom fit and finish, early solid lockup. So, not that one knife is necessarily better than the other. I think that the large Sebenza has a few qualities going for it as well. And it's definitely top notch and as good as any custom that I've handled. But if you're looking for something a little bit more robust, or if you're looking to get into a custom knife at a relatively affordable price point, definitely the El Patron is going to be a good choice for that. So guys, this knife came to me from a buddy of mine, Jason. He has a YouTube channel. It's NOSAJ03. It's Jason spelled backwards, 03. And he's also on USN. He's just a really nice guy. And, you know, he basically just reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to check out this knife that I'm getting from Jeremy Robertson? And I was like, yeah, dude, that'd be awesome. He's like, cool. You know, you just send it out to me just to kind of evaluate and check out. So, you know, I can't thank Jason enough for that. It's really cool, and he's just a good guy. So thanks a lot. Definitely go check out his channel. He gets in some awesome knives. And this will be going back to you in about a day. So you'll have it back. I'm sure you're missing it. And really appreciate you letting me check it out. So anyway, thanks guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked the video. Make sure you check out Jason's channel. I'll put a link in the description. If you have any questions or comments about the El Patron, please let me know down in the comments. As always, take care. See you next time.